And I have come to adopt a pretty strong belief that learning how to not just build software with these agents, but learning how to manage agents, both personal and professional use cases, is the most essential skill to learn for every working adult in the world. Instantaneously, Claude knows everything about every aspect of my business, and so in a way, it's like the most incredible board member or advisor. The middle manager layer is going to be gone. I think it's going to be gone. And we've had almost 6,000 students go through the program, and we just had our 7th student win a Grammy.
Spencer, welcome to the Parallel Entrepreneur. So the Parallel Entrepreneur is all about celebrating the messy, beautiful art of doing more than one thing at the same time and investing your passions where they belong, where they want to go, and bringing things to life. And it manifested for me in owning more than one company at the same time.
Yeah.
That's parallel entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And for you, we're going to have a great conversation exploring your background. And when I look at your career from music to software to education and to AI, it feels like there isn't a common thread running through it until you think, well, hey, Spencer, what's the common thread?
I think that the common thread is curiosity and learning. I think that that's the fundamental through line that everything that I've ever started is rooted in. I'm just naturally curious, and I want to figure things out. And as I figure things out, I think the natural next step for people is to then pass that along and teach it to people, and you can build businesses around that teaching process. And yeah, I think being curious unlocks all sorts of opportunity to build and create value in the world.
So you're the CEO of a company called Sonora.
Yeah.
And the mission is to educate and bring the power of the student forward, right? Would you talk to us about what Sonora is?
Yeah, we're a modern music institution. So we've taken what most people would do in an undergraduate degree in 4 years and condensed it down to something that a student can complete in 6 to 12 months of focused study. We think about it through this lens of accelerated learning. So taking principles from the neuroscience of learning and adapting it to music and allowing the student to progress through this curriculum really rapidly. We believe in hybrid learning, which is kind of a combination of software-based learning, but then also one-on-one direct mentorship. And we've been in operation for the last almost 8 years, 7.5 years right now. And we've had almost 6,000 students go through the program, and we just had our 7th student win a Grammy. So
7 Grammy Awards.
Yeah.
That's spectacular.
Yeah.
And you have Grammy Award-winning teachers as well.
Yep. Yeah. Our faculty, they've all taught at top institutions and played with some of the best artists in the world. And yeah, so we've made a really solid team of people who really know how to do this stuff. And as far as I'm aware, and I know the space pretty well, we're the most forward-thinking music institution on the internet. And we're not for everyone, but for people who kind of want this like serious path and are aiming to attain fluency and be really creatively expressive on their instrument, we're the best game in town.
Creatively expressive. I like that. The student experience at Sonora is what?
Student experience?
Yeah.
It's a combination of a few different things. So there's software. My background's in software engineering. And so there's software that models the student's memory, helps them understand, what they should be learning next, what they're about to forget based on their own forgetting curve. So we power spaced repetition. Then there's one-on-one direct mentorship that happens on a daily basis. And there's group classes that people attend. We have a curriculum that we run them through, which is essentially equivalent to what a student would learn in an undergraduate education. So it covers all the same materials you'd learn if you went to, guitar. You were a guitar major at Berklee College of Music or something like this. And so, yeah, we kind of try and hit it from all angles. It's remote, so you don't study in person. But we find that for a lot of the fundamental mechanics of the instrument, it's actually learning online has a lot of advantages because software can kind of harness the person into a certain path. It can handle these things like spaced repetition. The delivery vehicle is more easily consumed, and it's just more like organized, better pacing. So it's really fun.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun.
In the comment section, there's going to be a lot of resources that people are going to want to click through and learn more. But Tell us what a sonic sphere is and why did it capture your attention?
Yeah. So the Sonic Sphere is a project that was developed, sort of co-living castle just outside of Paris, France, that I spend a bunch of time at. It was initially developed by a man named Ed Cook, who is like a memory champion, really interesting, amazing person. And he wanted to have a spherical concert hall where he could experience the wonders of music spatially and basically sit in. The vision was, I want to sit in a net and have speakers coming from all directions, from below me, above me, from all sides. And then I want spatial audio and just to be able to bask in the glory of it. And there have been 11 iterations of this sphere, and they've gotten progressively larger each time. The first one was the size of a bedroom, and then sort of got progressively larger. There's a sphere still in France that holds about 30 people inside of it in a giant net. And then we brought one to Burning Man. It was a fairly large sphere. And then the biggest one that was created was it was stored in the shed in Manhattan, which is one of the largest indoor art exhibition spaces in Manhattan. And it was a mega sphere that holds somewhere around like 200 people inside of it. Huge, massive sphere and a massive production. And millions of dollars went into the sphere, and we had some amazing artists play in it, and I built a bunch of music experiences for the sphere, and have been just kind of like involved as a creative in that project for the last couple of years.
So you studied music at UCLA.
Yeah, at the musicology.
Practiced there, and for thousands of hours, like most musicians, you just kept on until you owned the instrument at some level, and then. I think after like 2 decades of traditional music approach, you found yourself stuck.
Yeah.
What did that feel like, and how did you get unstuck?
Yeah, I think there are, with any skill, so I'll speak more broadly, but this happens in music, but also happens in any other like skill acquisition path, be it languages or learning about business or learning about any skill. There's massive gains from 0 to 60% capability. You just make massive leaps and strides. It's the most exciting time of learning a skill is the beginning stages. It can be frustrating, but it's also just like every day your skill set is changing. So then you get to the intermediate, what I call the intermediate plateau, where the incremental gains just they just slow down a lot, and it can be a year of like basically no progress, even though you're still putting in work and like working on the craft. It can feel like you're basically spinning your wheels. And this exists in most domains. Within the sphere of guitar, everyone gets stuck at this level where they learn their open chords, their bar chords, pentatonic scale, and then they sort of 90% of guitar players out there just kind of stop there. That's the intermediate plateau. You can kind of sound okay to the...
You can be good at a party.
Yeah, right. Campfire guitar player kind of thing. Beyond that, there's obviously many levels to the game, and there are true masters of this craft that are stratospheric in their capability and their ability to translate the ideas in their head immediately to the instrument seamlessly with no impedance. And a lot of that has to do with kind of circling back to the fundamentals. So it's sort of like people learning to cook is a good analogy. It's like you can go use recipes, and that'll get you pretty far. You can sort of like fake being a chef, so to speak. But if you want to actually become a great chef, you have to learn the fundamentals. You have to actually learn the principles of cooking and combining ingredients and the chemistry of what it takes to actually be inventive. And so the same is true in music. In order to break past the intermediate plateau, fundamental principles, so scales, dyads, triads, arpeggios, seventh chords, inversions, like how does the actual instrument map? And then how do you then apply that fundamental architecture to all different styles? Because all world music styles, and I've spent, as maybe we'll dig into, spent 5 years, just nomadic, traveling from country to country every 3 months, studying so many different types of world music. But the common thread through that is that the principles of music are the same. The only difference is that the rhythm changes and the idiomatic phrasing changes. So like the way that they express melody changes regionally, but the principles of how harmony functions is relatively the same, with a few exceptions that tend to happen in East Asia. Yeah.
So you found yourself stuck.
Yeah.
You described what that felt like. You were just not making progress, and that
Yeah.
it's a common experience.
The most common experience, maybe.
And then a lot of people struggle with getting out of that place.
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily common that people get unstuck.
Right.
They're stuck.
Yeah.
How did you get unstuck?
Oh, just great teacher. I found a great teacher, this woman named Isla Cantor, who was, just had a really clear path and good pedagogy and sort of helped me move through that path really smoothly. And then at the time, I was working as a software engineer. There was a position called a product engineering leader at Patreon. So I was holding down that role, helping to build the growth team. And on the side, I would work on little software projects to help me with my hobbies. And so I built some software around her path that was basically the first version of the Sonora software. And it was a spaced repetition app that you could plug exercises into, and it would kind of develop practice plans for you and tell you what to do each day, and then keep track of the things that were likely to like leave my memory, and then sort of resurface them. And it would just send me emails with like, here's your practice plan for today, and then I would sort of check things off in a little Google form, and that was the interaction, and it worked. Like within a matter of about a year of study with her, I broke through that plateau, and of course there are more plateaus beyond the intermediate plateau that happen, and I'm on one right now that's going to last a few years because the incremental gains are just so small. It's more about repertoire, but there's the biggest one is this intermediate plateau, because on the other side of the intermediate plateau is a profound level of expressiveness where you can really be dynamic in any musical setting. Before that, it's very clunky. So most people need to get over this hump. And so anyway, we went from that initial sort of study with her and building the software. About a year after that, friends started basically asking for, hey, can I do that thing that you did with the software and blah, blah, blah. It was just sort of started as like a side project just for fun. And then those friends started telling other friends, and then we sort of ran out of capacity to help students. So I had to hire a teacher, and I happened to be taking some extra lessons from this guy on Instagram who's kind of an influencer. And I was like, hey, do you want to teach some extra students? I got students coming through this thing, and we're kind of developing this like little pet project. And then that turned into more students, and then it turned into even more students, and the pandemic happened, and then we had all these amazing musicians on staff who needed consistent work, so we had to build like a marketing function, like a proper marketing function, and like an admissions function, and then fast forward to now, and now it's a pretty large team, and it was sort of like an accidental business, but coming from and I think this is also like a thread that feels important, which is like a lot of people think like, I want to start a business. What business should I start? But I think actually the world sort of invites a business out of you when the time is right. It's like the same is true with Pioneer Species. Like I'm not intending to start a business here, but enough friends at this event that we did over the New Year, enough friends were like, teach me about everything you're doing with AI. And I was like, okay, cool. And I organized it, and now it's like a company. And then it requires no marketing because those friends tell more friends, and like every cohort is filling with like friends basically, or friends of friends. And so the world recognizes you as a person who knows a thing about a thing, and then they want to learn from you, and then suddenly you're doing that thing. And
I like that most successful businesses or entrepreneurs solve a problem that they have, that they understand, and then that happens to solve problems for other people. And I think this sort of rote approach to, I'm going to do this, and my TAM is this, and it's an exercise that is good to have familiarity with, but it is not the heart and soul. It's not what a culture is built on.
Right.
The culture is built on your passion for music, and I think also teaching. Like, what have you learned about how humans learn that has impacted your business and your lived experience?
Yeah, so many things. I think that obviously there are a bunch of principles and cool techniques for sequencing content and making sure that paths are digestible and pedagogy is strong. That's a whole field of study that's fascinating and useful. But I think the biggest thing that prevents most people from learning complex skills like music or business or engineering is just the motivation wheel. So how do you actually get the motivation wheel running, so that there's enough of a carrot with each incremental step that's pulling you to the next step, right? How do you basically embed wins into the process so that while you're learning this very challenging thing that forces you to confront all sorts of limiting beliefs and difficulty in yourself, how do you make it so that along with that adversity, you're also getting little treats of like wins, basically? So I think good educators have ways of embedding those wins in the learning path, and yeah, I think that's one of the main things.
I call those little victories.
Yeah.
I like to open up a meeting with, hey, what's your little victory? And everybody has to find one. You got to come to the meeting with a little victory, even if you know, most of us think that a victory has to be big. Yeah. And in fact, they're just stringing together a whole bunch of small progress, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was enchanted with the sphere. We're going to talk about that again in a minute. But, and because of our conversation, you'd like change how I thought about music, how I thought about experiencing music. And then you invited me to Un Poco de Planning, which I'm going to throw this out as a softball. First of all, you could describe what it is, but I'm going to talk a little bit about how it was to experience it.
Yeah, great.
And
I'm so curious.
And this is something that you've done a couple of years in a row. You invited my wife Jenny and I, and a number of our common friends, and then about 40, 45 people that I did not know, creatives, entrepreneurs from all over the world. And we went to Mexico City for a 2025 review and a 2026 visioning exercise that lasted a week.
Yeah.
And I think it's notable to start with. Most of us set goals, aren't committed to them. Yeah. We might be clear enough to set intentions, and that's better. Yeah. And then we put things in motion, but we didn't actually give it a week, or in this case, 2 weeks total, to really reflect and simmer and sort through how would I be motivated, and how could I marinate on this idea and then get committed to it. Yeah. So that was a piece of my experience. Why did you create Un Poco de Planning, and what was your experience there, and what do you want people to know about it?
Well, I love organizing my life and thinking about what it would look like to paint a vision for my ideal future and think about my contribution in the world, and I like to have structure around it, and I've been doing it since I was in my very early 20s, like thinking about, okay, life kind of has these like 5 to 7 categories. What are my like main objectives for some period of time in those categories, and how can I kind of be intentional about, you know, choosing my future rather than just like being subject to the whims of the world or other people's intentions for my life. And there, for a few years, I was in this accountability group called the Teamerific Accountability Buddies. Accountability Buddies, yep. And so we would, we would meet every single week and hold each other accountable, and then we would do these little retreats where we'd like fly to Thailand and do these sort of intensive annual planning and reflection things. And so I loved the model, and I just kind of continued doing it. That group phased out, but a couple of years ago. And then I've also attended other people's like New Year's planning things. So I vibe with people who are like into this intentionality around annual planning. And so a couple of years ago, my friends Marcus and Carter were like, hey, we're thinking about gathering another group. And I was like, awesome, let me get involved. And we organized that a couple of years ago for a smaller group, 12 people. And then this last year, sort of organized a larger group and took everyone to Mexico City. And then thought a lot about how to structure an event like that. Like how do you actually get 40 people on the same page with different intentions, different visions, to think about the last year, think about a 10-year vision for themselves. What's their long-term outcome that they're aiming towards, and then how do they get sort of tactical about the next year and the next quarter, and then also there's just so much cross-pollination that happens like in these groups where obviously the folks that were at this event are just so inspiring on so many different levels. There were people who were very left brain, very right brain, a mix of both. And so when you get everyone into one place, and they some of the most magical moments happen outside of the programming, and just kind of just seeing how other people operate in the world and what's inspiring to them, and then it's a really powerful container. And I also think it's a nice heartbeat for a community, and I really, especially as I get older, the value of like creating cohesive community over long periods of time is really important to me. I think it's such a vulnerable space to be in, that it creates these really deep bonds with the whole crew, because you really get to understand who's this person at a fundamental level, what are their values, what's their vision, and you get to learn from them, and then you really get to form these relationships that last forever.
Yeah, you're building community intentionally.
Right.
The music community, the musicians are a community, and here you've got people who are planning a life pivot or extension. It was all the above.
Yeah.
And the community was beautiful.
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Yeah.
My wife Jenny and I actually started this process with, we're going to Mexico City. That'll be great.
Yeah.
And we tried to leave our expectations behind so that we could just experience the process. And you talked about left brain, right brain. Some of those structures, like I really gravitate towards Spencer's organizational principles for getting shit done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also really appreciated people being vulnerable about their fears and what's holding them back, and talking about what's holding you back.
Yeah.
This experience led Jenny and I to commit to building a new company together, and the motivation was we looked in our relationship and found that we were happiest, we were extremely successful feeling when we were collaborating.
Yeah.
And it didn't really matter what we were collaborating on.
Yeah.
So we said, well, how can we collaborate on bringing something creative to life?
Yeah.
And so I have this background in textiles for Swiftwick. She has this overall that everybody says is awesome, and she wears it. It's the only pair of overalls in her wardrobe, and she's wearing it. And even the people at Unpoco de Planning were reinforcing and supporting, like, that's really cool. Where'd you get that? And the answer is you can't get that anywhere.
Right.
So we decided to create Happy Overall. My friend Brandon shared a piece of advice recently. Dress so that if someone dressed up as you for a costume party, everyone would know it was you. Now, that's not entirely about clothing. That's about identity, about showing up fully. My wife Jenny and I are leaning in on this concept, both in our personal lives and now in a little startup we call Happy Overall. We're making overalls. Each one is made to order as a wearable canvas for art. Overalls that are comfortable, durable, and expressive. We're sourcing soft, 100% cotton. We're partnering with designers and with local seamstresses who love the artistry of a well-crafted piece of clothing. We're launching in summer of 26, so check out happyoverall.com to see pics and see if anything resonates with you. Fully you, and it'll happen every time you reach for them. If you want to be part of the first run, join our waitlist at happyoverall.com. And there was this conversion, so I'm speaking as like an experiencer of that, where you got to commit.
Yeah, I think that I love that question. I love seeing someone who's like, I have an inkling that this idea is going to feel really good for me to execute on, but I've got all of these doubts about, is it going to be a good idea? Is it going to work? Am I the right person to do this thing? Is it just like a pie in the sky, like too ambitious, blah, 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 blah. I don't think you suffer from that. I think that you know that you can execute. But a lot of people at all levels have this like doubting voice in the back of their head that prevents them from taking a step like that. And it's cool to surround yourself in community where everyone's sort of like, it actually is quite possible. It's quite doable. And here's how you would do it. And in fact, like you've got demand right here. Like you got a bunch of people who want the thing. Do it. And then there's a light switch that turns on for people of like, oh, actually, if I just commit to doing these things and I see the first 3 steps, I can do that. That's realistic. And it becomes much more plausible. And then suddenly action comes out of that. I think about last year, my friend Connie, she was at the New Year's planning event, and she was like, I'm really good with words, and I'm really, I have this artistic vision for this thing where I interview people and then I paint their bodies with some of the words that they have said in this interview that's really meaningful, and I take photos, but I have no idea how to do photography, or like it just seems like there's no way I'm going to do this thing. And literally within a month of the planning event, she had done it. She had organized 12 shoots, 12 interviews and 12 shoots. She had this whole art gallery piece essentially, and then she was presenting in Mexico City, ironically, at Zona Maco by February. A month after she had set this intention with no idea how she was going to accomplish it. She was like an artist, a galleried artist a month later. And it's just the power of this intention and also the galvanizing of the people around you who are like, in the room were like, how could you do it? Well, you need some lights, you need someone to take the photos, you need a model to interview and paint. And there were people in the room who were like, I've got lights, I've got a camera, I'll be your model. It was just like, it all came together, and the next week they had a shoot, and then suddenly it was like a project, right? It's just really cool to see things manifest so quickly and easily, and I think community does a lot of that, right?
Yeah. Parallel Entrepreneur started as an exploration of my seemingly inability to focus on any one thing for a 25-year career and get a watch. You know, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who focus on one thing for a long time, and we read a lot of books that say 80-20 rule, do one thing.
Sure.
And I just don't think that resonates with me. That's all.
Yeah, it's not the model for everybody.
No.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some wisdom in this parallel entrepreneurship, and there's also some challenges. And you speak about it in your writings as generalism.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, generalism is basically this. It's a perspective that most domains have overlap. I mean, we know about this from like the Renaissance era. Like, there's such a thing as like the Renaissance person, and it's this idea that if you learn a lot of things across a lot of domains, they have applicability in adjacent domains. So a really great example, one of my favorite examples, who I recently had on my podcast, Jack Conte, is an amazing CEO of Patreon and also an amazing band leader. And he's really good at running this company, which also makes him very good at running the band. And there's just like this immediate, obvious crossover of, study in this other domain. Turns out it makes you really, really capable in this other domain. And so instead of feeling like having a lot of interest and being, quote unquote, scattered is a bad thing, it actually is following that curiosity will have all of these downstream compounding effects because of the way that subject matters tend to be complementary, which is Charlie Munger was had a lot of ideas around this, or has a lot of ideas around this, where he's got these like the 100 mental models idea, where if you learn the like primary mental models from all of the primary disciplines, biology, physics, statistics, all of these things, although they exist within these specific domains, they are broadly applicable to all things in life. If you learn the 100 most common mental models, you can be really successful in life as long as you internalize them, because they are these generalizable tools for life. And I feel that way. So
most people talk themselves out. You were speaking about to this earlier. Most people talk themselves out of the business idea.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't mean you're starting a business. It could just be a creative project. But for one reason or another, we talk ourselves out.
Yeah.
And when we got in community, we were reinforcing. Plus, the right brain and the left brain person were each helping each other through these breakout sessions.
Yeah.
And I think a superpower for a parallel entrepreneur is not believing that you start the answer to the question with "No, I can't."
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The answer to the question is "Let's find out."
Yeah. I also think that there is something about generalism that creates agency, and I think that entrepreneurship is all about agency. I see a problem in the world. I want to fix it. How quickly can I go from a desire to fix the problem to a solution? And it's very hard to do that if you don't have a pretty broad array of skill sets. And so for me, for instance, I grew up a computer nerd, so I loved making websites and coding since I was a kid. And whenever I see a problem, I very quickly move to, okay, well, how can I use software to solve this for myself or for other people? And so that skill set strapped on sort of has this immediate agency component, which is not that I'm going to go monetize my skill as an engineer, but I can use this skill to build a solution that I'm looking for. And then as you build companies, as you know, you end up having to strap on all these other skills because there's no one else there with you until you've got the money for
Yeah.
it. So you learn accounting, you learn how to manage a team, you learn how to run a good sales process, you learn how to run Facebook ads if that's what you're doing, you learn how fulfillment works, how to actually manage high quality service for your customers, and so you just have to like bolt these things on, and then you realize that all of those skills, though they are disparate skills and require different parts of your brain, they are generalizable in and of themselves, and you can take those same components and then apply them to every possible type of business. And turns out everything in life is kind of a business, so you can then do basically anything. Yeah.
Basically anything. You studied Chinese, right? And then you've become fascinated by the process of language learning. You even talk about a guitar as a language.
Yeah.
How does language acquisition factor into these skill sets that you're talking about?
They're identical, especially kinesthetic skills. So I kind of bifurcate learning into, there's more gradient to this, but you can kind of think of things as like cognitive skills and kinesthetic skills, like embodied skills, like languages and instruments, versus cognitive skills, which are things like math and science. Now, obviously, kinesthetic skills have a cognitive component, but they all have a very similar learning mechanic, which is you have a set of information that you need to memorize, and then you need to figure out how to turn that memorized stuff into immediacy. So make the information intuitive quickly. So for instance, it's one thing to learn a scale. I can sit down and teach you the G major scale on guitar, and you'll sort of learn it rote. It'll take a couple of days to get it in your hands, and then how do we take that skill and turn it into something that you can actually express with? It's a very different learning mechanic. There's a different step in the phase in the process to go from initial memorization to implementation. The same is true in languages. I can teach you a bunch of vocab and throw it at you, but it's not that useful if you don't know, how to structure sentences and then how to pull those words into your working memory very quickly and then use it in conversation and know which version of this word to use in a certain conversation to imply the right feeling to the listener. But yeah, a lot of the learning mechanics are the same. Spaced repetition being one of the most useful ones, but also sequencing, like how to deconstruct skills, isolate the most high frequency, high value vocabulary or grammar techniques, and then sequence it so that the next thing you're learning is built on the last thing, and you're not sort of like randomly taking things from the tree and trying to like digest it, because the brain doesn't have anything to associate it with.
Yeah, I love the way that you self-program. And as a CEO, you're the leader trying to train and develop a culture, trying to train and develop a business, trying to make sure that customers are received in a way that is consistent with your business mission, vision, values. And I wonder, I don't think we all think enough about training, about the outcome that we're looking for. It seems to apply. If my outcome is I want to be a virtuoso, then I can embody that. But my outcome might be I just want to be a really great customer service manager or a really great problem solver in a business. And these things that you're describing are the building blocks and mechanics of teaching people how to learn.
Yeah. The fundamental principle, I think, with a lot of this stuff is this theory of constraints idea. Like in a business, if we want to grow, we always have to direct our attention to the biggest constraint. So not like what is someone else telling me I should do with my business, but actually look at the business, understand what the throughput metrics are for the business, and where the biggest constraint is, and then try and understand what's causing that constraint, and then come up with some hypotheses for how we might unlock that constraint, and then test it, see how it works, and then if it does work, then the constraint is gone and we focus on the next constraint. The same is true in learning. So with music, you run into constraints by putting yourself in uncomfortable circumstances. So I'm trying to learn bluegrass. I'm going to go to a bluegrass jam. Someone's going to point at me and say, go take a solo. And I'm going to take a quick solo and I'm going to feel really comfortable over the G chord. But once I get to C, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't have any vocabulary there. So, okay, my constraint is I need more C-shaped vocabulary so that when I get to the C chord, I know what to do. I'm going to go home and I'm going to learn 10 licks in C. And then I'm going to go back to the jam and see, did those licks come out? Did I internalize them enough that they became intuitive so I could use them in the moment? And then if they did, then I move on to the next constraint. So learning skills, learning languages, running businesses, it's all sort of like fundamentally about attuning attention to the areas of most significant constraint, and then running experiments or devising little environments to fix those constraints.
Yeah, I like this little environments. Sometimes we try to boil the ocean instead of just getting the teapot going.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about AI from you and a number of other genius people at the planning session in Mexico City. And that then became, of course, we were all like, hey, Spencer, teach us.
Yeah.
That became Pioneer Species.
Yeah.
And I think I'm one of your first underperforming graduates.
You did great. You did great.
I had a great time doing it. And the experience was Spencer's going to take us through AI. And I've studied AI. I've had people working for me who were talking about AI. But there was always like a missing block of vocabulary or a missing reference point or something about my learning that made me less comfortable making decisions or directing other people who are talented and expert in this area. And your approach was all the things that we've been talking about. You laid it out in such a way that I got super excited. And there was this moment where I was really taking it in. And then there was this moment where I was lost. And then there was this moment where I started pulling all-nighters doing vibe coding, It was awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us what Pioneer Species is all about and how that's playing out.
Yeah. Well, so in November of 25, a new model came out called Opus 4.5, developed by Anthropic. And it really unlocked, it was the big unlock for agentic coding and development. Before that, it was pretty bad. Like you would try and vibe code and it would just basically just spit out broken code and it was not useful. But in November, end of November, early December, right before Polka to Planning, it got really good. And so I've been tracking, obviously, the ecosystem really closely and experimenting with all the tools. And then in the month of December, rewrote a bunch of software for my company, and then also like built an app for Polka to Planning. And I was like, okay, we're actually here at this point where it's possible to build like pretty complex software using these models. And so what I came to realize over the first quarter, and what many people obviously are coming to realize now too, is we're moving into a very different landscape in terms of the way that we work in the world, and the way for operators and company owners, everything is shifting about how we should think about hiring and growing our teams, the types of skill sets that we should be looking for. And I have come to adopt a pretty strong belief that learning how to not just build software with these agents, but learning how to manage agents for both personal and professional use cases is the most essential skill to learn for every working adult in the world. No matter what you're doing, whether you're in customer success or you're on fulfillment or you're doing marketing or you're an engineer or you're anywhere within an organization or you're a solo entrepreneur building things, every single thing that you can do with a computer, agents can now do if you design the right environment for it. So it's this amazing lever where the nature of my work personally 6 months ago versus today is fundamentally different. I start my day and I'm basically spinning up like 15, 20, 30 agents to work on different tasks. And then I'm spending much more time QAing am useful, and then like sort of keeping the plates spinning, and I'm also, Pioneer Species was basically designed to upskill my friends, who some of whom are technical and some of whom are not technical, and also my team. So I built it to put my team through it. So now, a bunch of folks on my team are building software tools that were never technical. From the most junior to the most senior people on the team, everyone now can write code and like build things for the company. Within Sonora, we rewrote the entire tech stack for every piece of software we previously paid for. So it was like, everything from our CRM to our calendar scheduling tools to our contract software to a bunch of software that didn't exist before for different processes within the company that we just invented from scratch, but built very quickly because you can now. And that was really great. One, because we saved like $250,000 a year on SaaS expenses. And two, because once everything is centralized and all the data lives in one place and you own all the hooks and you've customized the software to exactly what you need, agents can now operate in that domain a lot more fluidly than they could with bespoke software from third-party providers where you don't own all the API endpoints. And so there's a real advantage to having everything sort of centralized in terms of speed. I can answer questions about my company now that I couldn't answer before instantaneously. Claude knows everything about every aspect of my business. And so in a way, it's like the most incredible board member or advisor. It knows second to second exactly what's going on in the business, what needs improvement, what's going well, what it gives me purview into things that previously would have been impossible or would have required an immense number of managers who are QAing everything meticulously and then reporting that back up to me, which is an incredible cost structure, right? It also allows the ICs to be more capable. So instead of having a marketing person, write an email campaign, put the subject line, figure out who to send it to, I can just say, write me a marketing campaign for this thing. You already have the Claude skills for how we write things and how we think about it. You know everything about the website and everything. It's going to go make a landing page. It's going to write the email campaign. It's going to plug it into the email delivery software. It's going to figure out who it should send it to and who it shouldn't send it to. And it's going to just say, cool, I did everything that previously would have been a month-long project with a lot of people involved. And it's just going to say, take a look at it, make sure it looks good. And if there's anything wrong with it, I fixed the problem with it, but then I also fixed the Claude skill. I fixed the context that created the problem so that it never happens again. And you can kind of see how this downstream creates so much more leverage in terms of usage of time, and the quality improvements are amazing. And so, yeah, now we just have a ton of agents that are working within the company, enabling everyone to move a lot faster. And I just think it's fundamentally one of the most important skills for people to learn. So I'm teaching it now. It's mostly a pet project for fun, but we've done 2 cohorts now. A lot of my friends have done it. They've recommended more friends. We do like 80 people in each cohort. My parents did it. So
my daughter was in the second cohort with my son-in-law.
Yeah.
They both got different things out of it. She reported that she was looking to solve problems and prepare for a community development project where she's going to take a leadership role. And as soon as she's ready to take it, she wants to hit the ground running. So she's really building Claude skills to be ready for this new volunteer chairmanship role that she's got. And her husband was saying, okay, well, I now know how to, IT reports to me. I now know how to see this smorgasbord of opportunity and to make better decisions in collaboration with people that you're charging to go do it, right? So that I feel like super fortunate because I got to know you and got to spend all this time with you and learn from you. And the rest of the world just kind of learned a little bit of something about you from a Time magazine article that was just published. How did that come about? What was the outcome, and what can we learn from it?
Yeah, I met a guy at a party a few months ago who...
That's what you said to me. I met Mark at a party.
Yeah, right, exactly. I met a guy at a party, and I didn't know at the time, but he was a reporter for Time magazine, and we were talking about this like agent transformation thing, and he was writing a piece. His piece was primarily about displacement within small and medium-sized businesses, and so he was looking for subjects for this piece, and and so we ended up being sort of like the main company that he wrote about, which was like, here's how this company went in, rewrote all their software, and our team scaled down a little bit because there were functions within the company that were either existed because the role was to maintain the existing SaaS software, or we had like an outbound setter team that we scaled back because there were a lot of agents kind of doing that work. So there was a narrative there around displacement. My feeling around it, it was cool to have this Time article written. My feeling is it's less about the displacement narrative. Like, in my view, we're still going to be hiring. The team is growing. Like, we're going to there's still a need for humans in this world, and
the business is growing, and you're doing things more efficiently, and you can think of a question and get the answer instead of send a memo, right?
So things are more efficient, and the more empowering narrative here is around upskilling. So fundamentally, as I said, I think every single person who's a working individual in the world needs this skill set. And so I started with my own teams. Like, everyone needs to learn this skill. Like, doesn't matter what you're doing in the company, you need to be really good with Claude, or Codex, or whatever model is good. They're all fundamentally the same. And so how do we basically take everyone who's in the organization and upskill them to a point where they're good at managing agents, and then the overall output of the company gets higher? And so the article spoke to that, and it was cool. And then I wrote another piece, that sort of a supplementary piece that added more color to exactly what our process was there, like what we replaced and why, what the implications were, what it enabled us to do, and how it accelerated that. I put it on my blog, which maybe you can link to in the
I thought that the blog was spectacular. I particularly appreciate people who can write well.
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
I like this idea that, for Time Magazine, it's framed in one way, and it's impressive. But the reality is, this is the many benefits. I think there's so much fear.
Yeah.
And we got a choice, brother. We can choose the path of love, or we can choose the path of fear, and we make that decision every second.
Right.
And I loved how you pushed through the hype and got deeper into the benefits and where everybody's winning.
Yeah.
I think one of the things we've talked about is, I do mergers and acquisitions, and I'll work with entrepreneurs who are taking their company to market.
Yeah.
And as a sell-side advisor, there are some common things that I see happen, and most of the time they're not prepared.
Yeah.
They think they are, and they want to get prepared. So then there's this period of time in which you have to spin up and be ready. And we'll create this thing called a data room. Okay. What I love about all my conversations with you is you have a virtual data room right now.
Yeah.
It's 24 hours a day working for you.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a benefit. 75% of CEOs today report that they are directing and spending an inordinate amount of time compared to 6 months ago, as you mentioned, directing AI strategy. And really hands-on with AI. 75% of CEOs.
Wow, that's crazy.
You're doing that 100%, right?
Yeah.
So this virtual data room is actually a place where you get to learn something.
Yeah.
What did you learn about your company when you got your 24-hour-a-day virtual data room put up?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So we have something at Sonora called the Sonora OS, and it's all of the software. It's like it's a monolithic app that has everything from our accounting to our CRM, to all of the marketing channels, and up to the second reports on basically every function within the company, every interaction, every call that's had, every call review that's AI call reviews on every interaction with a customer. And so there's a data layer that is all of that information, and then there's an intelligence layer, which is Claude working through a set of skills and basically methods that we've trained it on, that gives us insights on things. And I think one of the hardest things that I was trying to figure out is we're at this point in the company where we've fulfilled the initial vision, which is we've had students win Grammys, and we're kind of at scale. Within reason, we're at the scale that I wanted to see, where the team is large enough and we're seeing some serious impact. We've got a lot of students and it's working. But what do you do next? And where do you prioritize time? How do you do constraint analysis at this level? Mm-hmm. And so the AI is really good at looking at a huge swath of information and reading through the tea leaves and figuring out where you should focus your energy, where's the low-hanging fruit. And a lot of times it will find the constraint. And because it's already got hooks into everything, it controls every system, it can go do the fix without any human intervention. So it's weird because like quarterly planning can look like, okay, Claude, go look at the business. What should we work on? And it's like, well, you should probably work on this, this, and this, and this. Do you want me to just do that right now? And you're like, okay, I guess that was going to be the quarters plan, but I guess it's done. And it's like, the agents are like executing on building the fixes for things as well. And you can also make it closed loop. We don't do that internally where, if you want, you can give it autonomy to go and just like make the changes, like find the problems, make the changes, and you can do this recursive cycle where there's no human in the loop. It makes suggestions and we say that's a good idea or a bad idea, and then we let it cook. But yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot about the business through that because it will surface insights, and then and I've also learned a lot about how I think that companies will look in the future, which I think is a tough pill to swallow for a lot of business owners and a lot of private equity groups, because I think fundamentally, and folks like Jack Dorsey talk a lot about this. I think that the middle manager layer is going to be gone. I think it's going to be gone. I think that the way that companies will work in the future is there's going to be an executive layer, there's going to be a layer of ICs, and there are going to be player coaches within the ICs that are sort of more senior, and they're going to be teaching things, but they're also going to be doing like 70% of like the IC work. They're going to be doing 70% of the time is going to be spent doing IC work, and 30 is going to be training. But the management layer, if you think about it conceptually, they're a data normalization function within the company. All they do is they take information from exec, intentions and directives, and they pass it down to the ICs. And then they take stuff that's happening on the front line from the ICs, and they pass it back up. They synthesize it, condense it into something that's a narrative, and they give it to exec. And then they make sure that people are accountable. Right? That's kind of the core function of most middle management. And AI is maybe the best in the world at doing this. Like, it is amazing at that. And it can also do a lot of the IC work too. So I think what happens is most organizations flatten out, and they just become exec with ICs, and most of the IC work becomes anything that a computer can't do, which is relational. For instance, on our team, we did this AI transformation. We didn't touch the mentor team. The mentors are the sauce. That's what we do. We do human connection and discernment and guidance on how to guide someone through a very in-depth mastery path. Humans are not leaving the loop on that ever, because it's a transmission, right? It's a human transmission. And so, what we can do is make it very easy for us to figure out what's going well and what's not going well in fulfillment. So AI can review every single student lesson in the entire ecosystem, and the moment something weird happens or something falls out of our core process that we know works really well to get people to a certain outcome, as soon as that happens, I get a Slack ping that's like, this weird thing happened on that call, go check it out. And then it's like training moment, right? Next meeting, we're going to review some tape. This, and this happened. Let's make sure that doesn't happen in the future. But the AI is catching all of that, which previously would be like a manager's job, but there's so much volume that it's impossible for one human to do.
Right. Your quality control is on steroids, and your speed to response for implementing any decision or identifying any problem is instantaneous.
Right.
That has a lot of implications. I work with a lot of private equity firms, and I have this idea that probably the most valuable human that a private equity firm can acquire is somebody with your skills who can look at a business and manage an AI transformation.
Yeah.
And then go help other CEOs who are not comfortable. Train them, implement them, mentor them, and get this done. I mean, I think that might be more valuable than your business.
Yeah. You might be right.
I see it, and I'm looking at you, and I'm thinking to myself, there's a second thing that's really valuable. After this Time magazine issue published, you thought about it and wrote on your blog a response. You publicly shared some things that you would have done differently in this transformation. And not every founder has the authenticity or the bravery to admit what they did that was wrong and to acknowledge it and to try to also learn from it. There's way too much ego involved, I think, just historically. And I like how you just flattened that out too. What were the mistakes you made? What could our listeners learn from your success?
With any of these changes, if you change anything in your company, there's always a tax. Like, you're going to pay the cost. So you lose momentum in some way, or you have to retrain your team on a thing, which takes some time to on-ramp into. There were a couple of areas in the company where we just did a hard switch and we paid that tax. And then I think one of the hardest things to do in a company is communicate in a way that is transparent while maintaining morale through hard times. Like, if you're doing a big AI transformation, people are concerned, right? There's worry in the air of like, am I next? Or what's the intention here? Like, they're hearing, the press is incentivized to say that AI is displacing workers, and that's what they publish about. So everyone's consuming this diet of like fear. And then their CEO is like interested in AI. And then, so how do you navigate communicating with the team around like, okay, you are safe here. Like, we're trying to create a stable ship. And if we don't adopt these tools, the company's not going to survive, because in 2 years' time, everyone's going to adopt these tools. We're ahead of the curve, thank goodness. And so we need to make some changes. But that's going to require the company to upskill as a whole, and for every individual to upskill as well. And it's kind of non-optional, right? It's like at a certain point, every single person, it will be, to not have these skills will be like not knowing how to use like Google Docs.
A cell phone.
Yeah. It's like you're not really going to get hired unless you know how to like write a document, or use a cell phone, or answer email. It will be that fundamental to the way that people operate in the world, and it'll get easier because right now there's not a lot of abstraction around how to interact with agents. You kind of have to be a little technical, and like you have to learn how to interact with an IDE and all of these things. And over the next few years, it'll get simpler, and people will build nice, polished user interfaces on top of it. But the way of thinking is the transformation, and everyone's going to need to change that. Like, instead of doing the thing, they're going to need to manage the process and the environment and the context necessary for agents to do the thing, and then know how to keep the plate spinning.
Mm-hmm. So the mistake was that you didn't take in a part of the human equation, and consider it first.
Yeah, the mistake was the timing. Thank you for bringing me back to that. The mistake is the timing of communication, and like, I didn't know how it was going to go. Like, this is an experiment that I know is necessary. You got to rip the Band-Aid off, and there's some like optimal way of communicating to the team that this transformation is happening. And my MO is kind of like, get in there and like bull in a china shop, just kind of start learn it and just like execute, and then roll it out and just see what happens, and then let the team know we're doing this thing now. And I think this is like a maturity factor for me of like just like learning how to do that, still have the like directive forward momentum energy of like executing and getting the transformation done, ripping off the Band-Aid, but then also knowing how to communicate with the team incrementally about the transformation, and get their buy-in, and really their participation in the process. Like, how do we make it so that we're all transforming the company, we know what the goal is, and we all want to participate in the transformation, so that we feel ownership over its outcome, rather than feeling this adversarial relationship to the transformation, where everyone is nervous to adopt the tools because is it just one step away from from
changing their paradigm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we all probably resist change more than we want to admit.
Yeah.
And here's a moment in time in which embracing the change has extraordinary exponential benefits.
Yeah. Personally,
professionally.
Yeah.
And I think culturally we make mistakes faster, but we can also correct them quicker.
Yeah.
You have, I'm gonna have to read these off, because you have Sonora, playback sessions, your podcast, Pioneer Species, your educational transformation program, expeditions, and you've sold a couple of companies before. You have this long history of adventures and ventures.
Yeah.
How do you decide what to invest your energy in?
That is the hardest question to answer. I think that there's also a whole litany of failed experiments, right? ventures that I've been like, that could be a good idea, and then I try it, and then it meets the market, and it just doesn't work. And there's kind of a graveyard of those things. And I think that if there's a common thread, between the things that have worked, it's always this like thing I mentioned earlier, which is the world invites it out of you. It's like almost like I didn't intend to start it. It's like friends have been like, can you teach me that thing? Or this should really happen. Or it just like falls. There's enthusiasm. It's product market fit. It's an undeniable feeling. When there's product market fit, it smacks you in the face. And then it's like, it's just easeful. It's like, all right, we're just going to fall in this direction. And it doesn't really matter like how we do it. It's just as long as there's some action in this direction, it's just like, it's just the easiest thing, right?
Yes, we're going to go develop this technology and hope everybody adopts it.
That doesn't
because
work.
It's smart.
Yeah.
No, that's not how it works.
Right. It's not how it works. It's just the product market fit. And also, I learned with Pioneer Species a lot about like tides. Like sometimes there's a tide where like it carries the project very, very easily.
Is that like flow? I like the word tide. I have not heard anybody use that before, but rising tides and
lifts all ships, that kind of thing.
We spend a lot of time talking about maintaining energy as a parallel entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And how do you recognize when you're in flow and how do you get back into flow?
Yeah.
Is there a secret for you?
I don't know. We've definitely gone through a lot of seasons at Sonora where it feels like the eating glass thing, where it's just like, gosh, there's so much headwind and nothing seems to be working, and I don't know why, and like I'm trying to diagnose, and it's just like hard.
What's that quote? The specific quote?
Yeah, it's like eating glass and looking into the abyss.
Yeah.
Elon's. Yeah. It's like I've gone through so many seasons like this, like crazy cash crunches where we thought the business was going to collapse, and then we figure out some way through it. And I think what it's taught me is like a really profound sense of detachment from the outcome, and then knowing that curiosity is the opposite of contraction. So it is impossible to be contracted or fearful and curious at the same time. Maybe not impossible, but it's very hard to hold both of those dispositions in a genuine way simultaneously. So, and obviously curiosity is expansive, it's more useful, it's a better disposition to be in. So when confronted with a lot of adversity and trying to find our way back into flow, I find that one, being totally okay and maybe even writing down, here's the worst case scenario, the thing totally implodes, and then I have to go work on something else, and it's a huge bummer for our team, and it's a huge bummer for the clients, and it's a huge bummer for me and the future of but also
this too shall pass.
No one's gonna die, and we're teaching music, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And in the worst case scenario, you learn a bunch of lessons, and then the next thing is more successful. So detachment from the outcome, so that you're not operating from this like cortisol spiked, frenetic, clenching energy, because it's nothing produced from that space is going to be generative. And then the like practical tool is, okay, I'm detached from the outcome, I'm still facing challenge. The way to get back into flow is profound curiosity. Wow, it's not working. I wonder why this isn't working. What would it take to just get a huge unlock in this area? What would I do if I had to figure out how to 10x the business now? Not just get out of this rut, but like grow by 10x in the next 3 months. Just getting very broad, very curious about all potential paths forward, and then writing them down. I remember when we went through a cash crunch. This was in 2020. I faced a crazy amount of headwind due to elections cycle spikes in ads cost, and we're just hemorrhaging cash. And I sat down in a state of like panic, frankly, because I'd hired this team of amazing instructors. Some of my favorite guitar players in the world were on staff, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to make payroll. We had like $100,000 in accounts payable the following month in payroll, and like $8,000 in the account, and I was just like, what am I going to do? It was like a few days away.
Sure.
And I just like
we've all been there.
Yeah, and I wrote a list of all of the things that I could do. The first one was just like crawl under my desk and have a panic attack and disappear from the world. And then it was like, okay, well, I mean, I could go take out a revenue-based finance loan to like stopgap it and then give me some more time. I could go raise some capital. I could run a little promo to all of our current students or to prospective students and pull forward some cash. I could get on the phones myself and just make it happen. I could do affiliate deals with this and this company that I've already created relationships with. You just sort of get curious about like all the lateral ways you can solve the problem. And then I was like, great, I have 12 things I can do here. I know exactly what the next step is, and then I just executed on all of them, and then like 3 or 4 of them worked, and we got through the cash crunch. And it's this sort of like curiosity-based, expansive thinking from a place of, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna try my best, and I'm not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna put one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, and try and navigate this as calmly as possible, even though the situation sucks. And you just eat enough of that when big stuff happens, you're just like, here's this again, it's fine.
Yeah.
And now I'm not super fazed by it, like really challenging situations.
What have you learned when you think about success today, when you define success for yourself today? How's that definition changed from the version of you that was 10 years ago?
I think success for me feels a lot more like alignment. It's just like, there's some combination of alignment and freedom, but not freedom in sort of like a Peter Pan way, but freedom of choice to do and build the things in the world that I want to build, which obviously has a financial component. It's like I need resources to be able to execute on a vision, or hire the people that I need to do a thing. But a lot of it has to do with like, do I feel aligned with the things that I'm spending my time doing? And do I feel aligned with the people that I'm working on it with? And does it feel good to wake up in the morning and do the work? That feels like success. And I think with that comes like alignment with like-minded people in the world, like having access to have conversations like this, where it's like, obviously, you've done awesome things in the world, and I'm inspired by your path, and we get to hang out here and have this conversation, and this feels like success to me, because had I not done things in the world, I wouldn't have earned the right to have this conversation, and so that's like an indicator of success. It's just like alignment with like-minded people.
I love it. Thank you for that. I received that. And I'm also receiving a question, speaking of global like-minded people in the world.
Yeah.
I'm now globally sourcing my questions for guests. I told Ed Cook that you were going to be on the podcast today. And I asked him what would be a great question. And it really threads nicely into this part of our conversation where you're talking about alignment and doing the things that I want to do. Sometimes it has to do with money, sometimes not. Yeah. And this balance, I'm really sensing a lot from knowing you about the balance between creativity and business. And so Ed wanted to ask this question. He said, if you could take a 30-channel microphone set up anywhere in the world, which traditions of song would you first go to record in situ, and why?
Whoa. What
would the experience be in the sonic sphere?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. So for the sonic sphere, one of the projects, this is a timely question, because one of the projects that I made for the sphere was this, it was a tour of world vocal traditions. And so it was a 45-minute experience where I took my favorite vocal traditions from around the world, from everything from like, Amazonian field recordings that I actually had recorded myself, to traditional Appalachian music, to stuff from the Balkans and stuff from West Africa, and this style, Indian style called konakol, and Balinese Kechak music, really awesome world vocal traditions. And then I sort of narrated this experience, kind of like a podcast type of thing, but it was a spatialized audio experience where you sat in the sphere and you could listen to all of these different world vocal traditions, and it's stunning. It feels like you're in the middle of the choir, in the middle of Corsica, listening to these incredible singers, and we presented that at the Sphere at the Shed in New York. And so to answer Ed's question, I would probably I think Georgian folk choirs it's some of the most wild music. The compositions are incredible, and it's somewhat improvised. There are aspects to Georgian folk music it's like you can sort of paint outside the lines a little bit. The vocalists are encouraged to paint outside the lines a little bit, and it's texturally wild. Like they'll incorporate sounds that are not even singing, like crazy screams and guttural sounds and like claps and stomps, and like it's really wild. It's the most creative form of vocal composition I've heard. Probably maybe the most complicated and intricate.
We talk a little bit about your 5-year nomadic exploration of music around the world, so it's perfect. You're identifying something that you need to go record.
Yeah.
And all these experiences that you had, it was, good Lord, Spain, Bali, Nepal.
Yeah.
And then you went to Ireland. And what I took out of your writings, and again, we'll put links here in the show notes, but what I took out of your writing about your experience in Ireland, this really was about the session style of music.
Yeah.
Knowing when to come in, whether you're late, knowing when to be quiet and listen.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what has music taught you? It seems to me like that might be directly attributable to how we behave in business and how we behave in community settings. I have seen in Nashville some of the greatest employees that I've ever worked with were all at Friday night and Saturday night, and somewhere in their life they were all musicians.
Yeah.
And they were such excellent collaborators.
Yeah.
And I had studied that. I was trying to figure what is it that makes these employees so fantastic,
Yeah.
and their capacity to collaborate with other people.
Yeah.
And then you talked about this took you to a different level. What did you learn in Ireland that is applicable?
Yeah, I think this is applicable. This is just the fundamental lesson, I think, of one of the fundamental lessons of music, which is music, especially improvisational forms or like jam session type forms. Technically, like most Irish music is not improvisational in nature, although the rhythm guitar parts can be. But it is, music on the whole is about presence and listening, and like 10% playing. It's like, so it's an amazing container. It's like studying meditation, but it's active meditation. And the meditation is, how can I basically become psychic with the people I'm playing with and put my brain inside of their brain while remaining embodied in my own body, right? Because I need to execute, I need to move my body in a certain way in time. But I also need to find a way to lock in with their consciousness and understand what they're about to do next. And some of that comes with just like knowing the person well, but also some of it comes with just like being so locked into the present moment that it's obvious what's about to happen, right? And the feeling the feeling guides the next action. And then part of that presence is obviously listening to what they're expressing. And I think this is also linked to, I had a peek at your questions before, but I think it's also linked to interview craft. Like you're running a podcast now. I run a podcast where I interview great musicians, and the whole game is like obviously preparation, knowing stuff about the person beforehand, but then just like locking in and getting really good at the flow sport of just staying, coasting, like surfing the present moment with the person. Because the next question or the next thing to do becomes obvious the closer you are to the exact moment in time. And so I think Irish music and all forms of jam music with other people teaches this. It's a great container for it. And I don't think it's like expressed in the session. They're not like, we're all going to get really present with each other. It's just the natural consequence of, if you want to play that music and get good at it, there's no other option than to lock into the present moment, and you cannot be distracted. There's nothing else in your mind, and you're just locked into creating a vibe with other people, you know?
That makes so much sense. It's such a reward too for our existence here. We get to actually be right here, right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've said a couple of things that I would like to just give you credit for. trust the compound interest. We've always in my life talked about compound interest as this thing you got to save money, and then compounding interest will, really make you wealthy in the future. Yeah. You talk about compounding interest in a different framework. It's about the transfer rate is an asset, and
in learning,
I think you also said something like this: one day you'll be in a room and notice that nobody else noticed what you noticed because nobody else has your particular combination of experience.
Yeah.
And I think what that draws out for me is this idea that nobody is a better Spencer Handley than you.
Yeah.
And I'm the best Mark Cleveland I have ever been right now.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better tomorrow and even 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
And so how do you take, what does it mean to you when you say the transfer rate is the asset? And what does it mean when you say trust the compounding interest?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think that when I talk about the transfer rate, it's again this like the benefit of overlapping bodies of knowledge is that the pattern recognition becomes really strong. Oh, I noticed that this thing happens in music when I'm collaborating with other people, and what I've learned about jamming suddenly applies. I used this example just a second ago. Turns out a jam session where you're playing improvisational music is almost identical to an interview, a podcast interview. So when I'm sitting down with Tommy Emmanuel, one of my favorite guitar players in the world, who's also an amazing improviser. This guy's mastered the craft of improvisation. He's a great interview because he's like so there. And it doesn't matter if I could have written down a bunch of questions beforehand or not. I know enough about Tommy to sit down and know that we're going to surf the moment and it's going to be amazing because he's locked in, right? And there's this crossover in those skill sets, right? And so there's compound interest in developing the skill of presence for interviewing, and there's compound interest in learning business skill sets when I'm managing a band or trying to think about projects that I want to launch into the world. I know how to market things, so there's just all of this like crossover between all of the domains. So that's what I mean by the transfer rate. And then it also reminded me when you said that of when I was living in San Francisco, I took a bunch of improv classes for a couple of years. There's a really great improv studio called End Games in San Francisco. It's great, and it's all about say the obvious thing. Like it's obviously we know these the concept of like yes-anding someone, like agreeing with what offer they make and then building on it, right? But one of the things they really emphasize is don't try and be clever. Say the obvious thing because your obvious thing is someone else's genius. Like because you're a unique individual, the thing that immediately comes to mind is not the obvious thing for somebody else. So if you're trying to think of the thing that you wouldn't think of, that's not going to feel as natural. One, it's not going to be as easy. Turns out, if you just say the obvious thing that's obvious to you, it's easy, and because of your unique background, chances are it's unique. So I think that's true here too. And then so your job then is to like build this wide foundation of lots of disparate skills and knowledge, so that the obvious thing to you turns out to be orthogonal or unique to the domain that you're evaluating in the moment, right? It's like I know enough about all these other areas that my observations here are going to be novel, just even though they seem obvious to me.
I want to thank you for opening my eyes in learning and education, helping me gain confidence in AI so that I could pull about 6 or 8 or 10 all-nighters and actually create something.
You built a really cool thing.
I had some fun. And also being a part of inspiring like the people around you get to surf that moment with you. They're on their own wave, but they can see you on yours, and you are very, very inspiring, a tremendous leader. And I'm grateful to have had you on the podcast today. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you for having me on. This was a total delight, and it means a lot. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Parallel Entrepreneur. And thank you to our sponsors, partners, and the amazing team behind the scenes who help make these conversations possible. If today's episode sparked something for you, be sure to follow, subscribe, and please share it. Learn about our growing community at parallelentrepreneur.com, including details on our mastermind and companion programs designed to help you align, grow, and thrive across multiple ventures. And of course, gratitude to every visionary guest who trusts us to share their story. Until next time, keep building in parallel.